Okay, why do you actually need to do your easy runs and recovery runs? Why can you not just focus on the key sessions, the midweek interval session to build speed and the weekend long run to build endurance? Why do you need to do easy runs and recovery runs? The reason why, and I get asked this a lot because I'm very big on, let's keep this simple, build the speed, build the long run at the weekend, build the endurance, both of those feed back nicely into each other and assist each other. And eventually you get to peak, ideally for your peak race, whether that's 5K, 10K, marathon or ultra marathon. So why do you need the easy runs and recovery runs? I get asked this question a lot in the comments. And it's basically like, can I run twice a week and do the speed session and then the weekend long run? And the reason why easy runs and recovery runs are so important is you should look at them like the foundation of everything you're doing. Now you might be in the gym a lot. You might be out cycling a lot. You might be doing a different sport and therefore you can run twice a week. What I'd always say is if you can add that third or fourth, ideally 5 or 6 times a week you'd be running, but if you've only got 3 or 4 days, just a short recovery run or easy run on that third run and ideally fourth run, that's gonna help you a lot. Easy runs and recovery runs, if you think of your body, you're trying to get it to do something pretty magical. You're trying to get it to run for a certain pace for a certain time and break fastest time you've ever done for that pace. A lot of you are aiming for PBs at different distances. If you focus only on the speed and only on the long run, you're putting your body under stress and you're not doing the easy runs and recovery runs, which the purpose of those is not just to enhance the recovery, not just to rebuild after you've broken down, which you do get breakdown, exactly the same as a weight session, where the muscle gets micro-teared. You'll get that from the interval session. And you're gonna get it from the long run. You're gonna stress the body in 2 different ways in order to gain the super compensation so that next time when you try to load the body in the same way, it's able to take that load and then some. But if you don't do the easy runs and recovery runs, you're not getting that slower pace where, yeah, you're recovering, but also you're building all the muscles in your lower legs via the running motion. And that's the important part. You might be in the gym training legs twice a week. The running motion is really, really important to do in the easy runs and recovery runs. And we'll get to pacing in a second. But your muscle and skeletal system is getting more used to running on that third and fourth run or the easy run recovery runs that you're doing in addition to the key sessions. Also building the capillaries and the mitochondria in the lungs. So you're building the body's ability to get oxygen to the muscles. So if you think of it like this, if you're doing 5 times a week and you've got a recovery run, a couple of easy runs, an interval session to go fast, and then a long run, the entire time you're building mitochondria. So you're building the surface area of the lungs. The lungs are split into little air packets called the alveoli, I think you pronounce it. And you're gradually building the surface area of those. So if you think of it like an engine, and you're building the surface area of the lungs, so that once you try to go fast or try to go far, and with far, the difficulty is keeping the pace the same for the same effort level throughout. Usually what you'll see in an untrained athlete, if they're not used to running a marathon, they'll start off at maybe 130, 140 beats, and then all of a sudden, for the same pace, and feels like very similar effort, the heart rate will drift up and it will become an effort that you cannot sustain. Because you've not built the surface area of the lungs, you've not built all those capillaries that are going to get oxygen to the muscles. That's the key important part. So it's important during the easy runs and recovery runs to, the main purpose is to make the body recover so that you enhance that recovery so you recover faster and fuller, ready to hit the key session, the weekend long run and the midweek interval session. But also you want to keep the pace relative. Now, if you think about it, you can look at Eliud Kipchoge, for instance, and he will run a marathon at 2 minutes 40 per kilometer. So it's easy for him to go out and do, let's say, 12 times a kilometer in 2 minutes 30, or even a little bit less, to get used to that running fast. So his recovery runs, if they're 50% slower than his marathon pace, he could do those at 4 minutes. He probably does them at that pace and a little bit less, even slower. So if you think of if let's say for instance you're running a 10K in 50 minutes, if you were doing your recovery runs at 7.5 minute pace, that would be relative to Eliud Kipchoge. Now, I'm not saying that even that's kind of relative to the best marathon runner of all time. We're still talking about minutes and kilometers and pace, etc. Yeah, so it still applies. What I will say is, if you can do your recovery runs, you might need to start slow and build to this. But if you can do your recovery runs, and I will come on to in a minute the difference between a recovery run and an easy run, just again, because I have mentioned it before in a video, but maybe in a more concise way I'm going to explain it. But if you get to a point where you can do your recovery runs and easy runs in a similar sort of style, so you're focused on your style, you're focused on the toe, ankle, knee, hip, all being aligned. You're focused on where your arms are going up to. And so that pace, the biomechanics that you're able to run that pace, even if it's 50, 60% slower than your target race pace, it still relates because you're still using the same muscles. You're still pushing off with the hamstrings and glutes. You still want fast feet. You're still landing in the same way. And it's the recovery runs and easy runs, you can think that they're very boring in comparison to a really exciting session like the interval session, where there's maybe a little bit of apprehension there because you don't know whether you can complete that or run the pace that you've said you're going to pace. Might be a bit of apprehension and excitement towards the long run because, yeah, we're going to run 25K and hopefully we do it in 2 hours and we stick into the right sort of effort level. With easy runs and recovery runs, the way I make them exciting for myself is I try to become the best runner that I possibly can. Because whilst I'm not looking at the clock and trying to run a fast time for the interval or a controlled fast time, and when I'm not looking at the clock and the pace and trying to run a relative time to my race pace, 10 or 20% slower usually on long run, this can be a time to practice running. And again, that's another benefit of easy runs and recovery runs. We get to practice being the perfect runner. If you look at even elite runners, you can look at 100 elite runners from all over the world, and there's good runners. There's runners that look great. Steve Prefontaine looked great when he was running perfect. Eliud Kipchoge looks great. Mo Farah had a bit of a track bounce to his stride, and therefore was pretty inefficient when it came to the marathon. Same with Bekele initially. And so that's why Bekele has taken quite a long time. Same with Gebrselassie, taken a long time to actually nail a marathon. And when I say a long time with Haile Gebrselassie, it took him four marathons to get it right. And Bekele has obviously come good, and now at 42, 43, whatever he is, he's running fast again. But it's taken a different type of running. Because they're running up on the track, they're in 5K and 10K, Mo Farah can be up on his toes all the time. And then if you pull that onto the tarmac and you put that into a marathon, the distance of a marathon, all of a sudden you're going to have Achilles problems and calf problems because you cannot be up on your toes for 42K. So practice being the best runner that you possibly can do when you're doing your easy runs and recovery runs. Finally, I'll say that the difference between my recovery runs and easy runs, and when I talk about easy runs and recovery runs, the difference is Wednesday, I'll do my interval session. And then on the Thursday, I have a complete rest because the interval session takes the most out of me. On the Friday, that will be a recovery run. And what I mean by that is I walk for the first 500 meters. I test in my body, 5 minutes of walking. Do I feel any tightness? It's a proper kind of MOT, a check on the body to feel, am I recovered enough to actually run as easy as I possibly can? And that might be a walk run, or it might be a super slow jog, the easy run, where my heart rate is usually between 110 and 130, nicely in zone 1. That's my recovery run. What it leads to is the easy run the next day. So on a Saturday run, I'll run an easy run, and the purpose of that easy run and the difference to the recovery run, I'm usually fresher because I've had the extra day and I've had that recovery run. And the purpose of that easy run is to get myself from feeling a little bit still sore from the Wednesday interval session to get in my body ready to run far on the weekend Sunday long run. That's the difference. The difference in time might not be anything. And I was asked this the other day, and my recovery run time can be anything from 30, 35, 40 minutes. Really easy. I'll stop and stretch whenever I need to. Got to think purpose and not getting injured. You're more likely to get injured on the recovery run afterwards if you push too far in the interval session than the interval session itself. Because loads of adrenaline, etc. firing, even if you've done a proper cool down, rest day the day after, okay, how are we feeling? And then you go out the next day, there's something lingering. And unless you take a lot of care on that recovery run, that's when you can run into trouble. And I have done that a couple of times, like 6, 7 years ago. But that's the difference. If you've got any questions, if I've not explained something properly, or you kind of you want to contest something, let me know in the comments below. I love your comments. I love what you're writing. And yeah, let's get faster. So